Hey guys, welcome back to the Midnight Movie. Today we are going to wrap up our Pam Grier retrospective with the absolute banger, absolute classic, absolute masterpiece, absolute masterclass that is Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown from 1997. Before we dig into this absolutely beautiful film, I am fully aware that the lovely Ms. Greer did more than just Coffee, Foxy Brown, and Jackie Brown. I have watched all of her films, and quite a few of them are free on Tubi. We love Tubi. You can sign up, they will not spam you, and you can watch just the depth and breadth of their video library is incredible, and it does include a ton of Pam Grier films. Part of the reason that I'm not reviewing all of Pam's films is I want to hit what I think are the most important ones. There are other films that I feel are important that I'm not necessarily reviewing for the channel, at least right now. Maybe down the line when we're a little bit bigger, have a little bit more of an audience, and I can afford to indulge my deeper niche art house, grindhouse tastes. I can afford to do that, but and I'm doing that to an extent. But you guys can dive in on Tubi and watch Sheba Baby and Friday Foster and Black Mama, White Mama. There's a lot out there that some are real hitters and are fun. I really love Friday Foster. Sheba Baby is just okay, but it's still Pam, and Pam is always fun to watch, even if the overall production is uneven and maybe not all of the execution is great. Pam is always great. But yeah, some of these films I'm not going to do a deep dive or mini review on, and you guys can check that stuff out on your own. And again, it's worth doing. Maybe at some point we'll go much deeper. But yeah, Coffee, Foxy Brown, and now Jackie Brown today. Jackie Brown, I literally finished watching this movie again just a little bit ago. And I remember seeing this movie when it came out in 1997. Yeah, I've been around, and if you don't mind me saying, I'm holding up pretty well. But I remember watching this movie because I remember what a pop phenomenon Tarantino was because of Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, and to hear about that he was bringing out yet another film. This was, I believe, his third film. Was a huge deal. And the fact that he was tapping into his deep love of Pam Grier and his love of 70s action, of blaxploitation, it really seemed like at this point, everyone who was cool, Hollywood actors that wanted to do something different, audiences that were really thirsty for something new, fresh, original, and unpredictable, really were getting exactly what they wanted in Tarantino's film. And here he goes delivering Jackie Brown, where he was able to really indulge his love of texture and deep character and just fun aesthetics, style, dialogue, all the things that we would really come to deeply love and respect Tarantino for. He was really rocking at this point, and he would do that for basically the next 30 years. At the same time, there were the Puritans were always on him about the violence and his language, which, if you've ever seen Reservoir Dogs, if you've ever seen Pulp Fiction, it's not for the faint of heart at all. But good art isn't for the faint of heart. So, yeah, Quentin stayed true to himself, and in Jackie Brown was able to achieve in so many ways a boyhood dream. He was a huge admirer and lover, and I don't mean physical lover, but lover of Pam Grier's work and of her as an icon, as a force in cinema, and had been telling her for a couple of years that he was writing a script for her. And she has said in interviews that she really had hoped that he meant it, because there's nothing more heartbreaking for someone to tell an actor, hey, I'm writing something specifically for you, and then someone doesn't deliver. That's happened to me a couple of times. There's nothing worse than somebody saying that, hey, I really like you, I like what you do, and I'm going to write to your strengths and challenge you. I can't wait to show this to you, and then going to follow through. Well, Quentin is a man of his word, and he understood what he had in Pam. and he delivered to her the script for Jackie Brown. She read it cover to cover, and even then was still, is this real? You know, she wasn't allowing herself to emotionally invest in the fact that this might actually be for her. And sure enough, it was, and the rest is history. This film in particular, I don't know, there's several reasons why I feel very close to it. But one of the things that I think is absolutely awesome about this film is, had this been a more studio film, had this film not had the absolute creative courage, the balls, the conviction of a Quentin Tarantino, this film would have had Angela Bassett and De Niro in the leads. That instead, Quentin cast Pam Grier and the great Robert Forster in. These are two actors that, while they were around, were in some ways forgotten by Hollywood. Not unlike John Travolta, who had, I guess, what some people say, a rough patch before Pulp Fiction basically resurrected his career. Pulp Fiction and Tarantino resurrected his career, and then Tarantino did it again. It's so interesting. It's so cool, and it's so I don't know, admirable that you have this hot young, sort of edgy, convicted young director in Tarantino, getting the list that he would get from the studio, saying, okay, these are the top talent. These are people that have, absolute assured box office. This is who we'd like you to consider for your leads. And once again, for the third time in a row, he's like, nah, I'm going to go with these two people that I've literally been watching since the 70s, Pam Grier and Robert Forster. Nothing wrong with the work that they did. Were they getting high-profile projects? Nope. But they're incredible. And, the right actors with the right director absolutely make magic. And that's what Jackie Brown is. Jackie Brown is a sort of an action thriller, crime thriller, about a woman named Jackie who has had some missteps in her life. She has moved money for drug pushers in the past and has lost work as a flight attendant, as a steward with the bigger airlines. And when we meet her at the top of Jackie Brown, the film, she's working for one of the lower tier airlines. And she's making about $16,000 a year plus retirement benefits that aren't worth a damn, as she tells Robert Forster's character Max Cherry in the film. And she's caught by ATF moving money again, and she's scared, and she is facing jail time. She just can't start over again. She's 44 years old. Her character is in the film, and as someone who is now in my 40s myself, although being 40 in 2025 and being in your 40s in 1990s, very different things. We don't smoke or drink like we used to. We know a little bit more about fitness and nutrition than we used to. Nonetheless, when you're in your 40s, you've lived a life, for better or for worse. And Tarantino beautifully writes this into the character of Jackie, and Pam Grier absolutely knocks it out of the park. And you really feel the weight on this woman. You feel the desperation of where she is at in her life. And, she's, found a friend in this Max Cherry bail bondsman. Max is played again by Robert Forster. And she's trying to figure stuff out. What does she decide to tell the authorities to reduce her sentence? Can she afford to even do, less than a year, and then maybe a couple years probation? So the pressure's on for Ms. Brown. At the same time, the guy she's moving money for, Ordell Roby, played by the great Sam Jackson, and this might be one of my favorite roles that Sam Jackson has ever done. I mean, this movie is just so perfect. He is cool. He is a real bastard. I mean, he's undoubtedly a villain, but you can't help but like him. Tarantino really is so good at writing and making you love villains, no matter how terrible they are. Jackie is moving money for Ordell, and she's caught. she's literally caught between a rock and a hard place, between the authorities of the ATF, played by Michael Keaton, and I'm trying to think of the other guy's name who's with him, of course, who won't fucking help me here. Jesus Christ. Yeah, they're not listing him. And Ordell Roby. And the film really is a game of cat and mouse of Jackie Brown trying to plot her way. You know, who does she side with? Does she side with ATF? Does she give them Ordell? Or does she try to do something more and try to please Ordell so he doesn't kill her? Does she try to attempt to play them against each other? Does she have the ability to do that? This film is so beautifully complex in the web of planning the escape that Jackie ends up plotting to save herself. The film opens up with the track across 110th Street, which is an old sort of soul R&B song from the 70s from the self-titled film Across 110th Street, which is a film about, it's another crime thriller of cops dealing with, the inner city, urban areas, the ghetto, I believe, of New York. That film was set in. And it perfectly fits with where Jackie is in her life. Speaking of the soundtrack and the score, they're not the same thing. For this movie, again, it's Quentin doing what he does best. He's an absolute genius behind the camera in forming these images. He's also an absolute genius when it comes to creating soundtracks. He rarely, if ever, works with a composer for his films. He goes back and digs through his vinyl, and he selects the tracks that he feels really sets the tone for a scene, for a character, to establish a shot. And it is one of the few physical soundtracks of his films that I own. In fact, it was the first one. I think it's so. I grew up again in Chicago, and growing up, in addition to not being liked by most of the kids, specifically the white kids I grew up with, I had a lot of great friends in Laotian refugee kids and the black kids growing up. And my family had pretty good musical taste, but having black friends and hanging around them and their families, my knowledge of soul, funk, R&B, blues, jazz was really enriched because of those relationships. So when I look at a soundtrack like Jackie Brown, it's just amazing to see the deep cuts of the Delphonics. Let me pull up here. So Jackie Brown soundtrack. Sorry, I should have had this up already. Sorry about that. So Across 110th Street by Bobby Womack, who anybody knows the 70s and knows that genre of music. You've got Strawberry Letter 23 by the Brothers Johnson, who also wrote one of my favorite songs, Stomp. You have Inside My Love by the late, great Minnie Riperton. That's a bonus track on here. You have Long Time Woman, which it wasn't until I started restudying this film a couple of years ago, is sung by Pam Grier. Pam Grier is so damn talented that in addition to acting, directing, doing her own stunts, she cut some tracks back in the day too. Long Time Woman is a great one, and it's on this the soundtrack. Tennessee Stud by Johnny Cash is another one that shows up. The soundtrack is absolutely fire. It's so beautiful, and it so fits the film. And I really love the fact that, again, Tarantino, again, he's such a genius. He knows exactly which tracks work. And I don't think I've ever seen a film where the tracks so perfectly fit exactly where they fall. Again, this guy's an absolute master. And whether you are watching the beginning of the movie where you see Jackie, she's on the, I guess it's not an escalator. It's a moving walkway in LAX to get to her job, where you have Across 110th Street playing, or you have a car ride where Ordell is listening to the Delphonics, or you have, I'm trying to remember the scene where Tennessee Stud was playing. I think it was another scene with Ordell, Sam Jackson. it just, oh, Street Life is another one, an incredible song that pops up at several points. Some of these songs uh, recycled several times throughout the film, and never once does it get old, ever. Just the absolute substance and soul. Uh, you can tell in every frame, every shot, every clip of this movie that Tarantino is really enjoying himself. And one of the things that I so admire about his career is that he's done it 10 times. He's done it with 10 films. It's so awesome to see somebody who is truly in their element and who's been able to do it over and over and over. And now the guy, I think, is basically retired from film. He doesn't like the direction of where things are going. You know, studios aren't allowing movies to stay in theaters as long as they should. Everything's getting dumped on to streaming, and nobody's seeing anything. So I think he's out. But for the time he was in, man, it was good. And Jackie Brown, I think, is truly one of his best. I don't know if it's as well regarded as one of his best. I was listening to a review, quasi review, from comedian Bill Burr talking about Jackie Brown, and he was talking about the first time he saw it back in '97 when it was in theaters. He was kind of an idiot and talking about, "Hey man, this isn't like Pulp Fiction. This isn't like exactly what I just saw." And so for him, it was an adjustment as a young dumb guy. That it wasn't like Reservoir Dogs. It wasn't like Pulp Fiction, which was really the sort of Tarantino's breakout film. And I feel like that happened for a lot of people. I don't know that it was as commercially successful as Pulp Fiction was. I think it's hard to compare. I've watched Jackie Brown more than I have watched Pulp Fiction, and that doesn't mean that Pulp Fiction to me is a bad movie. It's an absolute friggin' masterpiece. Everything Tarantino's done is a masterclass and a masterpiece, and they all should be studied. But there's a soul, and there's a true, for me, a romance to Jackie Brown that isn't necessarily in all of his film. I'd say Jackie Brown has, and without being sloppy or being saccharine, it's his most romantic film. Then, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood has that. It's because, of course, it's his love letter to LA and to Hollywood and to that generation of America. But it's not as romantic as Jackie Brown. And what's so great about Jackie Brown, in its romance, in its action, in its dialogue, in its drama, is it is so adult. It is so mature. It is so well developed because the entire cast are frickin' adults. Everyone is, at least, with the exception, I think Bridget Fonda was maybe in her 30s at this point. But De Niro, who plays the supporting roles in it, you've got Sam Jackson, you've got Pam Grier. They're well into their 40s by this point. Robert Forster, who plays Max Cherry, who assists Jackie, is, I believe at this point, at least 50 or 50 or maybe 56 in this film. And it isn't trying to be, nor has any Tarantino film tried to be, hot or current at all. And I love that he's really the only motherfucker left who isn't casting fucking Instagram models. I just watched Alien Romulus, and the film did really well. It made about $350 million. It's almost the same as Alien Covenant that came out 6 years ago. And what I've watched in the Alien franchise is everyone who gets cast, it's a bunch of pasty English kids. The males and the females all look the same, I think with the exception of this incredible young black actor who's in it, who's fantastic. Everyone else might as well be the same damn person. Films like Jackie Brown have real people, real characters with character faces. And that doesn't mean those faces aren't handsome or beautiful. Pam Grier has a strong Roman nose. She has a face that is very different from a model's face. You know, she's got this, big, beautiful hair. She isn't textbook hot, and that's why she's beautiful. That's why she's always been beautiful. It's one of the things that we've always loved about her. I'm so glad that Pam Grier got to be Coffee and Foxy Brown and Friday Foster and Jackie Brown before the days of people, women in particular, being pressured to hack their noses off truncate their noses and pull their faces up and inject this and inject that. Pam Grier, in her mid-40s, in Jackie Brown, is as stunningly beautiful as she is in Coffee and Foxy Brown and Friday Foster. And I love that. Again, nothing against other actresses in her age range or her wheelhouse of talent, but again, kudos to Tarantino to getting this woman back out there and showing her to us and reminding us why Pam Grier is great, reminding us what she had to offer. Ditto with Robert Forster. Robert Forster was doing at the time throughout the, Robert Forster shows up in Bullet, which we reviewed a few, I believe Bullet a few, was it Bullet? I think it was Bullet. It might have been something else. But he shows up in a lot of movies in the late 60s and through the 70s. He worked quite a bit. You get to the 80s and the 90s, he's doing a lot of direct-to-video films, smaller budget stuff. But Tarantino has said in interviews that there's nothing wrong with Robert Forster. He's a solid actor. It doesn't matter whether the material he receives is really good or just so-so. And again, that's the same with Pam Grier. So to watch these two veteran actors that were largely forgotten, or because they weren't hot, just weren't getting the most maybe top-tier projects, to be selected for a project such as this with a young, hungry, original, strong, ballsy, opinionated, I've said original, just badass director. God, what a gift. What a fucking gift for an actor. And these two really just light the screen on fire. Add to that Sam Jackson as Ordell, as this villain, and then you've kind of got his sort of dumb henchman in Robert De Niro and Bridget Fonda, who's great in this as well. It's just such a beautifully well-rounded, grounded movie for fucking adults. God, I go back and I watch this movie in particular, but I watch all of Tarantino's films, and I watch these films from the 70s, so much of which influenced Tarantino. And something is missing in modern films, and we're casting these kids that maybe people are aging slower now because of nutrition and wellness. I don't know, but no one has character on their face, and I don't mean look old, but everybody looks the same. No one has features anymore. No one has a nose. No, everybody's sort of like this weird rounded. It's like we're grounding down the rough edges of faces, of talent, of personalities and souls in modern Hollywood. And I'm fucking bored with it. I've said that over and over. And I love that Tarantino says this as well. The fact that Hollywood is largely intellectually bankrupt at this point, or creatively bankrupt. Not to say that there aren't great creative projects being done, because there are. There are. But we're leaning too hard on the safe stuff, it feels like. We need to be taking more risks. But between the finance bros and sort of the hyper-politically correct folks that are kind of calling the shots right now, we're not getting as much risk-taking. We're not getting Pulp Fictions anymore, unless Quentin gives it to us. We are getting Everything Everywhere All at Once. We are getting some real risk-taking film, but not to the extent that we used to. There are no more Forrest Gumps and so forth. Where's Malcolm X? I really did like Defy Bloods, but it's, again, Spike Lee can't do it all on his own. I did like Sinners, really original, great stuff. But there's something, we're playing things safe. We're grinding down the fine edges, the rough edges. The stuff that makes life and art and cinema interesting it's lacking, and it's because we're all leaning into this social media age where we don't realize we're obeying an algorithm, and by doing that, we're losing our individuality on some level. Not in every case, but a movie that rejects all of that and is a beautiful piece of cinema and comes from an original voice in Tarantino with original, unique, tried and true, experienced actors in Pam Grier and Robert Forster and Robert De Niro and Sam Jackson, is Jackie Brown. These are the movies you should be going back and watching and rewatching. Rewatching and finishing this movie just now, I won't spoil the ending for you if you've ever seen it, but it really, every time I rewatch this movie, it hits me harder. And I think that's because, and the ending in particular hits me harder. And I think that's because I'm a mature, grown, experienced man who's lived adult who's lived a life, and that's who Jackie Brown is. That's who Max Cherry is. That's who all of these characters are, and that level of maturity and groundedness and sense of a life lived is really missing from a lot of cinema today. So maybe not creatively, that we're bankrupt, but we are way too inclined to push towards. Everybody wants to stay a kid these days, and it's really pathetic. It's really the infantilization of people, and therefore of music and cinema, has really ruined a lot of these art forms. And Jackie Brown, I feel, is one of the blueprints of how to turn it around and how to get it back and how to grow the fuck up and be an adult and make art for adults. If you can do that, people will come back to the theater. People will open up their wallets and they will pay to watch your movies. But these kids live on social media. They're not going to do that. I mean, they might. My nieces and nephews will absolutely go to the theater. My nephew was so impressed by Sinners that he's like, "Uncle, I have to take you." And I went, and I was blown away. So these kids are going to be all right, but we've leaned way too hard into digital. We've leaned way too hard into streaming, and we've cut our legs up at the knees as an industry. And the only way to get out of this is going to be original voices. It's going to be original stories. It's going to be original people coming from outside the system, making their own stuff, putting it out there, because people are really hungry for original stories. They're hungry for something that isn't polished and digitized and, I don't know, like ground down. They want real shit. It's the only way I can say it. And that's what Jackie Brown is. That's what the entire Tarantino library is. It's what current auteurs like Jordan Peele and Emerald Fennell, and Ryan Coogler, and who am I missing here? To Robert Eggers. They're giving us that gritty, textured, original, unpredictable, fun cinema. And all of those folks are worth your support. We can get back a new golden age of cinema, of Hollywood, of world cinema, if we support these people that have the intestinal fortitude to take a chance on their own vision and to fight for it. And Tarantino's been doing that for 30 years, and Jackie Brown is a beautiful example of that. One other note too, it's funny how the things you forget from when you were a kid. And one of the things that pops up in this film, and Tarantino again is a beautiful architect of his worlds, and so much of for example, Jackie's apartment in this film really feels like the apartments of where I lived growing up in Chicago. Growing up as a lower income kid, working class kid, and having working class neighbors, looking at her living room of her apartment didn't look unlike the living room I had when I was a kid in the 90s, that my neighbors had. People who held on to while it is a 90s leather jacket, as you see here, really styled after something that came out in the 70s. Kangol hats were really hot in the 90s, really had blown up as a result of, hip hop rappers wearing them. And I love that Tarantino has both Ordell and Jackie wearing Kangol caps in this movie. And I cannot begin to tell you how cool I felt when I was watching this movie, knowing that I had not one, but two Kangol caps at home. I had a black and a gray one. I have no idea where they are now. I got a brown one here. This is a vintage one too. This is not a new one, that I wore all the time. Again, you come up with black people, and you really have just the deep love of black culture that I do, because frankly they were the only ones that were nice to me and were cool to me and treated me like a human being, you gravitate towards those folks, and so you embrace culture, and you embrace music, and you embrace food and all those things. And I felt like a cool ass motherfucker as a kid with my Kangle cap, watching Jackie Brown and seeing those things on screen. It was one of the few times in my life at that point where I really felt like, oh, I wear this because I like it and because I know it, and I'm seeing it reflected back to me, not just in music videos, but in these films. So again, that level of intimacy is one of the reasons I love Jackie Brown in particular, but also the work of Quentin Tarantino. When he dropped Kill Bill a few years later, it was as if he had reached into my head as a kid who grew up with, I believe it was called Samurai, it was either Samurai Saturday or Samurai Sunday on Channel 66, WGBO in Chicago. Grew up watching that, and so absorbed all of these samurai films and kung fu films, and then he drops this movie that I'm just like, dude, how did you know I even wanted this? And so he's someone who stayed true to what he loved growing up, and just took it and refashioned it into his own aesthetic, whether it be Kill Bill or it be the great Jackie Brown or what have you. So guys, Jackie Brown, you've got to watch it. I know some of you guys might be afraid of watching, and you shouldn't be. It's stupid not to want to watch a movie with a protagonist just because she's female. But that's, she is a protagonist. And whether she's male or female, God, she's just so badass. And it's so well written, and so well directed, and so well set dressed, and so well designed. God damn. Do yourself a favor and watch this movie immediately. And then rewatch it and watch it again and download the soundtrack and enjoy it. Because this is a fun movie, and movies should be fun. And your life should be fun. So go have some fucking fun, all right? And I'll see you all in the next one. Take care in the meantime.